Hello everybody. This video is about installing IBM WebSphere MQ on your Windows system and creating MQ objects like remote queue, local queue, transmission queue, sender receiver channel, and in this video we'll demonstrate how to send message from one queue manager to another queue manager. So let's get ahead in this video. First thing you'll need is to install the IBM WebSphere application. The software is available onto the IBM website. So if you click on this link, you will get the setup to install. Here, if you come down for installation of IBM WebSphere on Windows, select this option Windows, and the steps it says estimated time is about 30 to 45 minutes. So for me, I've already downloaded the setup and installed it. These are the steps that is mentioned. First thing is to download the setup. So click on the download MQ and click on this IBM MQ Advanced for Developer for Windows, and from here it will ask you to agree with the terms and condition. Go through the license conditions, read through it carefully and select I agree. After agreeing, the download will start automatically. In my case, I've already installed it, so I'm going to cancel this and I'll show you my installation that is done already. So here you can see my IBM MQ is installed and it is running. In the web portal from where you are downloading the software, it says the steps to install also. So after downloading and unzipping it into your local directory, follow the step number 2. In this step, he will ask you to update, run cmd command, a start command with mentioning the 3 files of your local path. And there are 2 types of installation, basically a silent installation and the one which you can do via the setup. You can do a silent installation. Silent installation is preferred because it is faster. We are running the cmd command, so you can go through the steps and install the software. Okay, so once you have installed the software, we'll click on this and open the IBM MQ Explorer. Now IBM MQ Explorer is the GUI, so I have it already running on my system. So this is kind of a GUI interface. From here you can create queue managers and create queue objects. So once the installation is done, let's go ahead and create a queue manager. I have 2 queues already created, queue managers created. One queue is listening at port 1414 and one is listening at 1415. So I have these 2 queues already created for my testing purpose. So let us go ahead and create another queue. While creating a queue manager, whenever a queue manager is created, a listener is also created along with it. So let me give the queue manager name is QMGR1 and click next. It will ask you for some other details. Click next. Click next. Okay, now what does it say? The port is already used by another IMQ listener. So I already have an queue which is running at 1415 and it has already a listener which is also created. So this option is not required as we already have a listener listening at a port 1414. So each port can have multiple queue managers, but only a unique listener is needed. So please uncheck this, the error will go away and click next. Finish. This will start creating a queue manager. My queue manager name is QMGR1. So I have a QMGR1 created. So now we have created one queue manager which is listening to port 1414. So now we have created a queue manager, one queue manager QMGR1, that is QMGR1, and it is listening at port 1414. Let's create another queue QMGR2. Click next, click next, click next. Now this is gonna listen at port 1415. At 1415 also it is giving that the port is already used by another IBM MQ listener. It means an IBM MQ is already created at this port, so we cannot have multiple listeners at even single port, because I've already created a listener for this Windows E14 queue manager, so there is no need to create a listener at this stage. Just select, click, and interval time has given us 15, so it will refresh every 15 seconds automatically. Now software is creating this queue manager. So now we have a two queue manager. Let's go ahead and create queue objects in it. So first thing, I'll go in and create a local queue with the name as LQ LQQ1. This is going to be a local queue with put and get message enabled. The usage is a normal. Click finish and it is successfully created. You can see the put and the get messages allowed, and it is a queue type of local. I'll create another local queue, but this time it will be a transmission queue. TXQQ1. I give it this name, and the usage would be a transmission queue. So a message would be transferred from a remote queue to local queue of a remote queue manager via a transmission queue. Hence we create this transmission queue. After creating the transmission queue, let us go ahead and create a remote queue. So our Q1 will be a remote queue for the queue manager 1. Uh, uh, the three most important thing while creating a remote queue is you need to mention the local queue of your remote queue manager, that is the remote queue for this particular queue manager. So I'll go ahead and first give this queue manager name as LQQ2, and the remote queue manager, that is the queue manage remote location where we want to send the message, would be QMGR. The transmission queue would be the transmission queue that we have defined locally onto our system. One thing you have noted is LQQ2. Where is this LQQ2? Yet we have not created this LQQ2 yet. This remote queue would be created in this queue manager as a local queue. So next step, we'll go ahead and create LQQ2. Let's finish this. So our remote queue connecting to our remote system is created successfully. Expand this. In this queue, in the second queue manager, will create a local queue with name LQQ2. This queue is locally defined and it would be put and get enabled. The usage would be normal and finish. So now we have a local queue defined onto a remote system, and onto our sender side we have a remote queue and a transmission queue locally defined. The details that needed to be updated is mentioned in a remote queue, that is the local queue remotely defined into remote queue manager RMQR2, and a transmission queue which is locally defined into our first queue manager. Okay, now to send this message we'll require another MQ object, that is a channel, as this queue manager is going to be a sender and this queue manager is going to be a receiver. Hence we'll define a sender channel first in our queue manager. The sender channel will be named as sender channel. sender channel 1, or you can say queue manager 1 channel. So this is a sender. Click next. It will ask you for a connection name and a transmission queue. Transmission queue is already defined, that is the TXQ1. The connection name, as I am using both the queue manager onto a same system, I'll give the local IP name as 027.0.0.1, and this queue manager needs to connect to the second queue manager, which is located at port number 1415. Finish this. So our sender channel is created. Now a receiver channel needs to be defined onto our remote queue manager or the queue manager 2. So receiver channel. Now one thing to be noted is the sender channel name and the receiver channel name should be same whenever you are exchanging any messages between two systems or two queue managers. So the sender channel name that I gave was this, and the receiver name both needs to be same. No other details is required. Just remember the transmission protocol. Here I am using as TCP, and in the sender channel also I use the same TCP as my transmission protocol. Okay, so now you can see a sender channel with the same name and a receiver channel with the same name. Now if you see, the listeners are continuously listening. uh, the listener is not present over here because I have already a listener which is running on the first queue manager. As you can see, the status is running. So now let us go ahead and active this queue manager by right clicking and start select. So the request to start the channel was accepted. Now the sender channel will start binding with the receiver channel on the QMGR1 channel, and the receiver channel is QMGR underscore channel underscore channel. It seems to be some error. Stop this. Earlier I had defined two channels for my testing purpose, so I'll stop this two channel, and for demonstration purpose. Okay, now the other channels are stopped, and channel that we are working with right now is the one that we created. Start again. Okay, so somehow this name should match. If it is matching, there could be some error. The name is correct, but then the channel is not starting. Okay, so the reason the channel was retrieving mode and not starting as a running was it needs a separate listener for each queue manager. So if your queue manager is defined at 1414, then you need to have a listener also with a unique name listening on that port. So for that reason, I manually created a two listener port for each 1414 and 1415, and now I'm starting this. So so this two listener, we can order on a simultaneous multiple listener at one port. Then I am using this listener, and this listener TCP1 is running, and this listener is not running. Trying to run. So how to create this? Click right click and create new, and just give the port that is 5 for this game. And it will create an object that will be start. Okay, listener at 41415 is too much because it is already running over here, so I need to stop this for this to run. So I need to stop this because already a listener was running, so they cannot have a multiple listener running it, listening at a single port. So for that particular queue, I had to stop that listener, and I had to start. Now I'll start my queue that I have defined MQ. So this will now start. Okay, so now this listener is running on my queue manager, and this listener is running on my queue manager. So now we'll go ahead and start running the channel that we define. A sender channel is initializing now, and the same name receiver channel defined on the queue manager. So now you see this is running, and automatically the receiver channel on that end is also running. So we have defined the remote queue and a transmission queue, and we define the properties of remote queue as this local queue on the remote side and the queue manager on the remote side, and we use our locally defined transmission queue on our side. So from here we'll right click on the remote queue and put a message. Say it is continuous. Let's say Christmas. Put message. So now the message is put from remote queue to the transmission queue, and it says the input counter output counter is 1. Via this channel, the message is transferred to our receiver channel. The receiver channel will put this any messages coming into this channel to the queue manager. Will check any message on the channels, and if there is any message on the channel, it puts it onto this queue. So if you see your local queue, it has a current queue depth as 1. To see the message, right click on it and see the browse message. There you will see message data as Christmas. So this is how you define the MQ objects on your local remote queue and a remote queue, and this is how you transfer message from one queue to another using channels and transmission queues. Thank you so much for watching the video.